There are moments in British boxing that never fade, and one of them is the sight of Henry Cooper lifting his gloves with that familiar, modest smile. For many, he was the very definition of a gentleman fighter, steady, humble, disciplined, and profoundly British in spirit. Yet behind that calm exterior lived a man far more complex than the public ever realized. People often believed that Cooper admired only those who mirrored his quiet way of living and his traditional sense of honor. The truth was very different. Across the years, he spoke with warmth about men who divided crowds, stirred arguments, and carried both brilliance and controversy in equal measure. Their stories were never simple. Their lives were marked by triumph and turmoil side by side. Why would a man as steady as Henry Cooper offer deep respect to figures who caused so much debate in the boxing world? What qualities did he recognize behind their public reputations? Tonight, we reveal the 5 controversial men Henry Cooper respected the most. Henry Cooper was born in South London, in a world shaped by hardship and quiet determination. The Britain of his childhood carried the weight of war memories, along with the hope of rebuilding something better. From the start, he understood the value of hard work, respect, and discipline. Those qualities followed him everywhere, from the small gyms of his youth to the largest arenas of British sport. He rose through the heavyweight ranks with a style that was unmistakably his own. He was not the biggest man in the division, nor the loudest voice, yet he possessed a left hook that could silence an entire crowd in a heartbeat. The punch later became known across the country as Henry's hammer. It was the strike that shook the world in 1963 when he sent a young Muhammad Ali to the canvas at Wembley. At that moment, Britain believed anything was possible, but Cooper was cherished for far more than a single punch. He represented a kind of sportsmanship that the British public admired deeply. He stayed humble in victory and gracious in defeat. He trained with discipline, spoke with honesty, and carried himself with dignity even during the most difficult moments of his career. In an era when boxing was filled with powerful personalities, he stood out by refusing to exaggerate his achievements or belittle others. This sense of honor shaped the way he viewed his opponents and colleagues. Cooper judged men by their courage, their effort, and their character, not by the rumors that surrounded them or the controversies they carried. For that very reason, the men he respected most were not always the ones loved by the public. Now we turn to the first of the 5 controversial figures who earned Henry Cooper's admiration. Number 5. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was one of the most celebrated athletes of the 20th century. Yet he was also one of the most divisive. During his early years, he spoke with an intensity that unsettled traditional British audiences. Many felt he was too loud, too confident, too willing to challenge established ideas. When he changed his name and later refused military service in the United States, the debates surrounding him grew even stronger. Some admired his conviction. Others believed he had crossed a line. Few figures in sport created such a powerful mixture of admiration and disapproval. Henry Cooper saw something different. He had shared a ring with Ali before the world fully understood what Ali would become. Their meeting in 1963 produced one of the most unforgettable images in British boxing. The moment Ali fell to the canvas after receiving Henry's hammer, the entire nation felt a surge of pride. For a brief instant, it seemed that a quiet Englishman had brought down a force of nature. Yet, Cooper never allowed that moment to define his opinion of Ali. He spoke of him with a respect that surprised many of his supporters. To Cooper, Ali was more than an opponent. He was a remarkable athlete with speed and reflexes that bordered on the impossible. Cooper often said that Ali made every fighter he faced better, because he forced them to confront the limits of their own ability. Such praise carried weight, coming from a man known for understatement and honesty. When Cooper complimented someone, It was because he truly meant it. Their styles could not have been more different. Ali moved like a dancer, his feet gliding across the canvas with astonishing lightness. Cooper was grounded, measured, economical, yet Cooper admired the beauty of Ali's movement, the intelligence behind each punch, and the courage he showed in standing by his beliefs. Even when the world turned its back on him, Cooper valued authenticity, and he believed Ali possessed it in abundance. There was also a quiet bond between them, formed not by victory or defeat but by shared understanding. After their first fight, Ali spoke warmly of Cooper and acknowledged the danger of Henry's left hook. Cooper appreciated the honesty. It was rare for Ali to drop his guard verbally, yet he did so when speaking about Henry Cooper. This small gesture deepened the respect between them. For many British fans, Ali remained a complicated figure. Some adored him, some questioned him. Cooper was never influenced by public debate. He judged Ali by what he witnessed in the ring and by the character he felt behind the showmanship. He saw a man who worked tirelessly, who carried immense pressure on his shoulders, and who remained committed to his principles regardless of the cost. In the end, Cooper believed that Ali represented the highest level of what a fighter could be, not only in skill, but in spirit. Admiration from Henry Cooper was not given lightly, and Ali earned it. Their connection continues to resonate in the history of British boxing. It reminds us that respect does not always follow the path of public opinion. Sometimes it belongs to those who dared to be different. Number 4. Joe Bugner. Joe Bugner remains one of the most debated figures in British boxing. Born in Hungary and raised in Britain, he arrived in the heavyweight scene with a combination of size, athleticism, and technical ability that few expected from a newcomer. Yet from the very beginning, his career carried a weight of misunderstanding. Many British fans felt he lacked fire. Others believed his calm, almost detached expression inside the ring showed a shortage of passion. Some admired his elegance while others doubted his determination. Few fighters in British history inspired such divided opinions. The controversy reached its peak in 1971 when Bugner faced Henry Cooper in a fight that would shape the public perception of both men for decades. The match ended with a narrow decision in favor of Bugner. Many spectators felt the judges were wrong. Cooper was a national treasure, and the crowd believed he had done enough to win. Bugner did not celebrate. He simply raised his hand with the quiet recognition that the moment was not entirely his. The reaction from the audience was harsh. Some even accused him of stealing a victory. From that day forward, Bugner carried a reputation that did not fully belong to him, yet Henry Cooper saw the truth with far greater clarity. He did not blame Bugner for the judge's decision. He understood that Bugner had fought with skill, composure, and maturity. Cooper later remarked that Bugner possessed a natural athletic ability that Britain had rarely seen in a heavyweight. He admired Bugner's patience, his defense, and his capacity to remain calm under pressure. Cooper respected fighters who did not hide behind excuses, and Bugner never complained about criticism or public reaction. He simply continued to train and compete. Cooper recognized that Bugner belonged to a new generation. The sport was changing, and the demands on heavyweights were increasing. Bugner represented that transition. He faced the toughest opponents of his era, including Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and he did so with the steadiness of a man who understood fully what the sport required. Cooper respected this bravery. He valued fighters who embraced challenges rather than avoiding them. There was also something in Bugner's temperament that appealed to Cooper. Despite the hostility he sometimes faced from British crowds, Bugner never lashed out. He did not argue with fans or reply with bitterness. He accepted both praise and criticism with the same quiet dignity. That quality earned Cooper's admiration. A fighter who remains steady when the crowd turns against him reveals a strength that goes beyond physical ability. Over time, Cooper often defended Bugner when the subject appeared in interviews. He emphasized the fairness of the contest, the professionalism Bugner displayed, and the fact that the decision was not in the fighter's hands. This generosity reflected Cooper's character, but it also reflected his honest respect for Bugner as a man and as an athlete. The relationship between Cooper and Bugner is a reminder that boxing is never only about results. It is about character, pressure, resilience, and the willingness to stand in the ring despite the noise that surrounds you. Bugner carried controversy through much of his career, yet Cooper viewed him through the lens of understanding rather than judgment. That is why Joe Bugner remains one of the most unexpected names on the list of men Henry Cooper respected the most. Number 3. Frank Bruno. Frank Bruno is remembered today with affection across Britain. Yet, during his active years, he was one of the most polarizing figures in the heavyweight division. His immense physical strength made him a national attraction, but his style raised endless questions. Critics argued that he relied too heavily on raw power and not enough on ring intelligence. Others believed he lacked the adaptability needed to defeat world-class champions. Supporters saw him as a hard-working British hero. Doubters saw a man who looked the part but could not quite rise to the top. Few fighters experienced such contrast in public opinion. For Henry Cooper, the judgment surrounding Bruno missed something vital. Cooper admired him for reasons that went beyond the technical debates of the sport. He saw a fighter who trained with relentless effort. Bruno never reduced his responsibility to excuses or public expectations. He prepared with seriousness, followed instructions, endured setbacks, and always returned to the gym with the same determination. Cooper respected that unwavering attitude. In his view, consistency of character mattered just as much as the ability to win titles. Bruno's career often placed him under extraordinary scrutiny. Every loss was amplified. Every victory was questioned. The public wanted him to be the next world champion. Yet, that desire carried pressure that few could understand. Bruno faced this burden with a smile that became iconic. Cooper recognized the courage behind that smile. He knew that stepping into the ring under the weight of national hope required a different kind of bravery, one that statistics could not measure. There were moments when Bruno faced criticism that would have broken a lesser man. He was told he lacked stamina. He was told he lacked ring craft. He was told he would never match fighters from other nations. Cooper saw the unfairness in these comments. He believed Bruno was judged not only on his performance but also on unrealistic expectations. Instead of mocking him, Cooper praised him for his persistence. He often said that Bruno represented the resilient spirit of British boxing, a man who kept moving forward, regardless of doubts. Bruno also carried personal struggles that later became public knowledge. These challenges added layers to his story and revealed the human vulnerability behind the muscular frame. Cooper understood that fighters are shaped not only by what happens in the ring, but by the battles outside it. He admired Bruno's honesty, the way he confronted difficulties without hiding from them. For Cooper, a fighter's character is tested not by a single victory or defeat, but by how he continues to stand during the darkest chapters of life. Above all, Cooper respected Bruno's dignity. Even when critics questioned his ability, Bruno never responded with anger. He thanked the public, supported charities, and welcomed young fans with genuine kindness. Cooper valued that grace. To him, boxing was not simply a contest of force, it was a reflection of who a man chose to be when no one was cheering. In Bruno, he saw dedication, humility, and a heart that refused to break. Frank Bruno may remain one of the most debated British heavyweights, but in Henry Cooper's eyes, he earned respect through resilience, effort, and sincerity. The two men belonged to different eras, yet Cooper recognized in Bruno the qualities he believed defined a true fighter. That is why Bruno holds a place on this list. A controversial figure who became a symbol of perseverance and quiet strength. Number 2. Don King. There are few figures in the world of boxing who spark more debate than Don King. His tall hair, his glittering jackets, and his unmistakable voice made him one of the most recognizable characters ever to appear beside a boxing ring. Yet behind the bright smiles and theatrical public presence lay a story filled with legal battles, public disputes, insider disagreements, and accusations that followed him throughout his career. To many fans in Britain, Don King represented the most controversial side of the sport, a world of complex contracts and dramatic negotiations. He was admired by some, criticized by many, but ignored by no one. Henry Cooper, however, viewed him with a surprisingly balanced eye. Cooper came from an era when promoters were quietly dressed men who remained in the background. Don King was the complete opposite. He dominated conversations, controlled events, and changed the global shape of boxing. Cooper did not agree with everything he saw, yet he recognized King as a force who understood the heartbeat of the sport better than most. To Cooper, King was a man who could take a single night of boxing and turn it into a grand event that captured international attention. Cooper believed that boxing was not only about two fighters in a ring, but also about the theater that surrounded them. Don King embraced that theater fully. He created spectacles that drew millions of viewers. He brought together fighters from different nations and made the sport feel larger than life. This ability impressed Cooper. He often said that King understood how to speak to crowds, how to build anticipation, and how to give boxing the scale it deserved. There was another reason behind Cooper's respect. He valued people who remained committed to their craft even when under heavy criticism. Don King was questioned repeatedly by journalists, athletes, and legal authorities. Yet he never retreated from his work. He continued promoting, organizing, and shaping the future of the heavyweight division. Cooper recognized the determination behind that persistence, whether admired or disliked. King never lacked conviction. Cooper also acknowledged the vision King provided to talented fighters. Under King's guidance, champions such as Muhammad Ali, Larry Holmes, and Mike Tyson participated in events that defined entire generations of boxing fans. Cooper believed that King possessed an instinct for recognizing greatness. He could sense the potential of a fighter long before the public did. This talent for discovering and elevating athletes was something Cooper respected deeply. Of course, Cooper never denied the controversies. He did not overlook the disputes or pretend that King's record was spotless. Instead, he made a distinction that revealed much about his own character. Cooper respected King not for his actions alone, but for the influence he had on the sport. Cooper believed that boxing, like life, is shaped by figures who are complicated, flawed, and larger than their reputations. King belonged to that category, a man who created storms, but also created unforgettable nights in the history of boxing. In the end, Cooper saw Don King as a reminder that boxing is not governed only by clean lines and simple stories. It is a world of ambition, conflict, triumph, and struggle. King represented the unpredictable energy of that world. And for Henry Cooper, a man who admired truth and authenticity, that energy deserved acknowledgement. That is why Don King stands among the controversial figures Cooper respected the most. Number 1. Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston remains one of the most mysterious and divisive men to ever lace a pair of gloves. His presence alone could unsettle an entire room. Broad-shouldered, silent, and carrying an expression carved from hardship, he appeared to many as a figure shaped by shadows. Stories followed him wherever he went. People spoke about his troubled early life, his time in prison, and the rumors that linked him with dangerous circles. Some fans saw him as a symbol of raw power. Others viewed him with fear and suspicion. Liston was not a man the public could easily embrace, yet he was a man Henry Cooper quietly admired. Cooper believed that people should be judged not only by their reputations, but by what they showed inside the ring. In Liston, he saw something the public often refused to acknowledge. Beneath the intimidating exterior lived a man who carried deep wounds and enormous talent. Cooper's admiration began with Liston's ability. His jab was heavy as iron, his defense disciplined, and his resilience astonishing. Many heavyweights folded under Liston's pressure, yet Cooper admired how Liston fought with a mixture of force and intelligence that marked him as more than a brute. He understood the craft, and Cooper respected that deeply. There was also a human quality in Liston that few noticed. Cooper once remarked that Liston behaved like a man who never expected kindness. This observation revealed much about both men. Cooper had a gift for sensing vulnerability in others, and he sensed it clearly in Liston. He believed that Liston carried the weight of his past everywhere he went, and that the hostility directed at him came not from his actions alone, but from the story people imagined around him. Cooper refused to join that chorus. Their paths never crossed in a competitive ring. Yet Cooper followed Liston's career with great attention. He admired the way Liston endured public criticism without protest. He admired the way Liston trained, quietly and without theatrics. He admired the way Liston approached every fight with the seriousness of a man who understood that strength meant responsibility as much as force. Cooper also believed that Liston faced pressures that most fighters never experienced. Every victory intensified the fear surrounding him. Every defeat multiplied the whispers of conspiracy. Liston lived under a spotlight that distorted his every move. Cooper respected the composure with which Liston continued to fight despite these burdens. He knew how difficult it was to perform when the world doubted your intentions. There was a lesson in Liston's story that resonated with Cooper. He believed that greatness can exist in complicated places, and that a man can carry both darkness and honor at the same time. Cooper often said that the most misunderstood fighters were sometimes the most disciplined. Liston, in his view, represented this truth. He was deeply flawed, yet deeply committed to his craft. A man with demons, yet a man who never walked away from challenges. For Cooper, Liston symbolized the hardness of life and the courage required to rise above it. While others judged Liston by rumor, Cooper judged him by character and effort. That quiet, unwavering respect revealed much about Henry Cooper himself. He valued authenticity, even when it was wrapped in difficulty. That is why Sonny Liston stands at the top of this list. The most controversial man Henry Cooper respected, and perhaps the one who reflected the deepest understanding of what it means to fight both inside and outside the ring. Looking back on the life of Henry Cooper, it becomes clear that the men he admired reveal as much about his own character as they do about the history of boxing itself. He never chose the safe or simple names. He chose figures who were complicated, disputed, and often misunderstood. In each of them he recognized qualities that mattered to him far more than public approval. He valued courage, resilience, discipline, and the quiet honesty that sometimes hides behind controversy. These 5 men remind us that Cooper saw the sport with unusual clarity. He understood that greatness is rarely clean, that talent is often born from struggle and that a fighter's worth cannot be measured by reputation alone. His respect was not shaped by victory or defeat. It was shaped by the depth of a man's journey and the strength with which he carried his burdens. As time passes and memories settle, Cooper still stands as a symbol of British dignity. His admiration for these complex men reflects a broader truth. Boxing is not only a contest of fists. It is a study of human character. And in recognizing that, Henry Cooper left behind a legacy that continues to honor both the sport and the people who gave it life.